Welcome into Hoops Forum, production of Radius Athletics and a Quick Timeout podcast. I'm Tony Miller, and my co-host Randy Sherman will join us here in just a minute. As always, thanks to our sponsors over at 323 Sports. If you're thinking about new basketball uniforms for your program this year, let me encourage you to take a look at 323 Sports Good Game Line. Right now, they have a special home and an away uniform that's jersey with shorts, and it also comes with a shooting shirt for only $145. To find out more about what they can do for your program, visit 323sports.com, or you can contact a sales rep at sales@323sports.com. They'll be sure to do it right for your basketball program. Randy, why don't you go ahead and introduce what we're going to be talking about today?
Yeah, for once I did. I kind of came up with the idea. You're usually the one coming up with the idea and make it easy on me to just show up and talk. So I guess the idea for today is to talk about youth basketball and maybe some approaches and some adaptations or just some things that maybe just bug us or we'd like to see done differently about youth basketball and offer some ideas for alternatives. So it probably has come about because I from time to time, and I'm sure you do too, get emails or DMs or whatever from coaches who are like, I'm coaching my son's 10-year-old and under basketball team, and I bought your playbook or like something like that, um, and I feel like maybe it's an audience we haven't spoken to yet with the youth basketball coaches, or it's a topic we haven't talked about yet. And when I have that happen, and somebody reaches out to me about 8-year-old, 10-year-old about some, 5-out early offense package I put out, I'm like, I didn't make that for you. I didn't make that for you, but I appreciate you buying it, and thanks for following, but yeah, so I guess just maybe that's been on my mind lately is like some of the things that communications I've received over the year from youth coaches and how I try to re-steer those conversations. So that's kind of the idea.
Yeah, I like it. I think a lot of it has to do with us, what we like personally as coaches. And to your
Hmm.
point, like sometimes it fits within maybe who we are or what our team is uh, able to do or what our players are able to do. And sometimes it doesn't. And I don't know that necessarily everybody kind of puts the thought into it
Yeah,
because they show preference to what they liked or what they grew up with. And that's just how like teaching and kind of life, all of life is. Like we need to really investigate why we're doing what we're doing, and is it
yeah,
is it the actual best approach for what we're trying to accomplish?
yeah. So I made a list of some things, and I know you've got a couple items to contribute too. I made a list of some things that I see, have observed both while I was coaching and now that I'm in my current role helping coaches that I just I don't know, they kind of give me the shivers. They give me like like I really don't like that about youth basketball,
Mhm.
So um I'll start. One of the things that I've noticed is this sort of like, and I already touched on it, is like this this idea of sort of like we're going to get a group of youngsters, 8, 10-year-olds, and and teach them like plays and offenses and things like that. And I don't know about the games of 8 and 10-year-old basketball that you've attended, Tony, but the ones I attended, I see nothing that looks like a play or an offense ever happen.
Mhm.
So I feel like there's a coach, maybe it's a dad who's just got a good heart. He's not trying to be malicious or anything like that, who is carrying out the coaching job of a youth basketball team as if they're tiny adults and not kids, right? So um, like I said, I'll get an email. I got your Princeton offense playbook for my 10-year-old team. And I was like, you are not going to see one thing resembling Princeton offense in a 10-year-old game. If you do, I would be super impressed. What I see is 10 guys just chasing around the ball that, everyone's running around crazy. Like, so, yeah, so I guess that would be my first one. I saw a great quote this week that I like that is play first, learn later, meaning like at a young age, let's just play. Like maybe there's already rules of basketball. You can't double dribble, you can't travel, you can't step on a boundary line. Like let that kind of be it and just play and explore within those. And then later we can learn plays, learn offenses, learn techniques and pivots and passes and things like that. But like, let's play first, learn later. So that's my first contribution to the conversation.
Well, I think what's interesting is the fact that I heard somewhere, when Dr. Naismith created the game, he created it to be played that way. That it was just for play. There wasn't necessarily plays or this idea of like coordinated efforts
Yeah, yeah.
because of, and even the way that the game is structured. I'm not a soccer coach, but I know a little bit about it, and
Hmm.
I think that is why we see the accelerated learning and the concepts being picked up faster by soccer players, because they spend a lot of times just playing, and just the nature of the game itself. We've stated
Hmm.
before that the nature of basketball is actually a little bit more like soccer than it is football.
Yeah.
And historically, so much of basketball in our country has been shaped by football.
Hmm.
This is how we coach it. This is how we maintain it and order it. But just the nature of the starts and stops of football do not go along with the
Yeah.
nature of
Yeah.
the game of basketball. It actually goes along more like soccer. I did not
Yeah.
look on your list. I'm gonna
Okay.
guess somewhere you say something about, maybe not. I'm gonna guess somewhere you say something about not taking timeouts, but maybe so. Maybe you don't have that on the
I
list.
don't, but no, I don't. But
I know that's
yeah,
something that you
you're
like,
the
but
same idea of like just
yeah,
we're here to play. Like I don't need to call timeout and like
right. Figure
set
it out.
something
Allow
up. Like
them
yeah,
to figure it out. And
yeah,
I think that when I said at the beginning, like, what are we doing here? What are we actually trying to accomplish? Most coaches are going to say, we want them to learn how to play the game of that,
yeah.
the game of basketball. Okay, so how do we do that? And it does not come by a set of organized,
Hmm.
deliberate plays. When we said last week, our goal is to teach coordinated movements, that's not plays, but we as coaches want to make sure, maybe in the vein of, we want these particular guys to get a shot because he's our only player that can make a shot, or our best
Hmm.
player too. And it has swung to controlling so much that now we are running so many plays for 5-year-olds, and
Yeah,
then they don't even know where they're going. But
yeah,
long term, it stifles their ability to understand really how to play the game
yeah.
out of a good heart. Like, we wanted them to have some success, so we called plays. But
Hmm.
in the long run, that's probably going to not allow them to actually grow and learn how to play the game itself.
Yeah. I mean we've used the word play a lot, and one thing that did make my list was sort of like what I perceive, and it's just my perception, but I think it's reality, is sort of like a reduction in free play, meaning like I live in a suburban neighborhood outside of Dallas, and there's driveways and basketball goals, and there's an elementary school in my neighborhood which I know is full of kids. Yet when I walk around doing my exercise and things like that, I don't see kids playing in the driveways and playing tackle football in the yard like I did when I was a kid. I just don't see that, even though I know my neighborhood is full of children. Like, where are they? Why aren't they outside doing? And I think that, um, if we've taken that out of our society and then we want to play a sport, that means every single time we really play a sport, we're doing it with a uniform, a coach, a scoreboard, two referees. Like, there's never this sort of like organic self-organization of play. And I mean that in the rawest, truest sense of the word play. Just play, like me and you in the driveway. I read an article this morning about Kelsey Plum, the Las Vegas Aces player, and I notice this a lot in articles. Like, she talks about playing. She's one of four siblings, and just playing things with her brothers and sisters, and I personally don't see that. I see a diminished
Mhm.
amount of that for sure. A park near my neighborhood's got beautiful basketball courts. In 1988, that would have been full of people, during the summer, or a nice weekend day. Like that would have been full of people playing basketball. Now it's empty.
I
And
applaud I applaud a couple of my coach friends who are doing they are setting up open gym times in the summer just to get guys to play. And I'd encourage coaches to I know
yeah,
your time is valuable and what you can do as far as availability and, it being allowed within your association or whatever, but they are not using that time to come together and work on an offense or work on a defense or work on plays. Like, they just want kids to come in the gym and play. And I do think, again, that will help with long term, really allowing them to actually, um, be a part of opportunities where they can grow and become better players. So, yeah, I totally agree with that. I'm sure we'll get Randy back here in just a second. He's back.
sorry about that.
It's all right.
What happened there?
I got kicked off, but that's all right.
I don't know. Uh,
I was waxing eloquently at the end for you.
you were sorry about that. Technical difficulties. Yeah, I'm talking more about just like the type of play that around the house, around the neighborhood.
But if they're not gonna get that, somebody has to set that up for them and at least, like, make your facility available and let them just come, like, even if you're just opening it and then allowing them to self-organize and play on their own.
Yeah,
But I think just providing something like that, to your point, like, I go out with my son and play, but I look around and I don't see any other kids out in the driveways, and there's basketball goals sitting out there and very
yeah,
rarely coming out. And to that point, like, if an adult's not there to encourage them to do it, I don't know that they're going to ever do it on their own.
yeah. Some other points that I made, if you will allow me to proceed, would be sort of like sometimes I'll see. I can remember when I was a head varsity coach, and I might have a little dribblers or youth basketball program in the community, and I'd go visit it, and maybe um, with the mind that maybe I'm going to kind of step in here and help out, but I usually leave like, no, no, I'm good. I'm good. I'll fix all this when they get to seventh grade, But like um, the the one of the things that I see is we've got tiny children playing on a court with a 10-foot goal, the same court dimensions, a basketball that's designed for players, human beings of a much larger stature and size and strength, right? And again, I think that's an example of we're not actually creating a sport, a type of game that's appropriate for the player. We're coaching them like tiny adults instead of creating something that's appropriate for children. And I just see different things like strategies that are allowed, that like zoning and pressing and things like that I just don't love for youth. Your thoughts?
I don't know why soccer coaches just get it better than most basketball coaches. My son played in a league, and they play with a smaller field, they play with smaller goals, they play with fewer players on the field. Like, there is an aspect of not just allowing them and helping them and encourage them to have fun, because obviously it is research has shown the more fun that you have, the more you stick with something, but also just for the size, the motor patterns, the being able to have success of scoring the goal because there was more space or the goal
Yeah,
was shorter, or I can actually hold on to the ball and shoot it. That to me just is like common sense.
yeah,
There is almost like this, they're proud because I can make it on a 10-foot goal with this big ball. And there are a couple kids that can, but I'd consider those more outliers than others who are going to
yeah.
quit or not stick with it or even see the success.
And you're not getting your shooting reps in the game anyway.
Oh,
You're yeah. I just think that's something that I don't know, just feels strange to me. I get that the facility needs to be modified, and that maybe costs some money. We got to get some goals in here, but if we're about development, that to me is the investment you make.
yeah, I agree. I agree. Go on.
And I
Next one there.
know, I know you had mentioned in our little pre-show conversation about some playing 3-on-3 instead of 5-on-5. I think that's kind of in this same topic right here. Like, let's modify the sport that we watch on television, basketball, and create sort of like a similar but alternative version of that sport that's purpose is development.
I'd challenge somebody that's listening to this, like, or maybe somebody's already done it, is to start a 3-on-3 league. I think that it actually could be done at the high school and college levels without much change to what you're already doing. I think about like those that have coached tennis before or coached like a sport like beach volleyball we have here. You have one team,
Mm-hmm.
but within that team, you have, in those cases, you have pairs, you have partners. And why couldn't you have two other partners that you have as your 3-on-3 team or a team of 4? So you could very easily have one 3-on-3, like your
Yeah.
team, and have within that 3 different pairs, giving you 12 players
And
that,
just cycle. Yeah.
and then just cycle through. And like, that's how you show up for, a mat, or you could play it against other schools. Like, you all go and you're only playing half court. So you could be playing one game on one end, another game on the other end, play to 11 or whatever, and then, or time limit, and then have the next team come on, and whoever wins the most 3 out of 4 games, like your team won the match or whatever it is. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just thinking again about the implications of more shot attempts, more space on the court, more reps,
More touches,
and
more.
by the way, a rule in college volleyball is the coach is not allowed to talk to the team while the game is going on. You can talk to them in between. So like
Timeouts,
if you had like a 10-minute game and you had after 5 minutes, you had a little quick halftime, the coach is allowed to talk as you switch ends in volleyball. But then once it starts, they're not allowed to talk again. And that kind of goes back to our first point. I think you're going to get more free play and more understanding of how to play the game if you had a situation like that.
Yeah. I think as soon as the adults get involved and we say, okay, we're going to have a league, and at the end we're going to keep score, we're going to keep standings, and we're going to have a tournament. And then, to me, as soon as we start doing that there's 2 dials: development and winning. And as soon as we do things to make it high school or adult like, and that, oh, we want to know who the champion is, we got to have a winner, we got to have an all-star team or something like that, we were turning up the incentive to win dial. And the coach, the dad, the mom, the whomever, the volunteer that's in charge of the team, then makes strategic decisions that feed toward winning rather than developing and teaching the game. And sometimes those can overlap, but sometimes they're at odds. Like, I can just tell my 5 guys or girls, like, stay in the paint and make this team of 8-year-olds playing on a 10-foot goal hoist long shots, and like, they're not going to make any shots. Or we can do something like bully ball and play. We've got one early bloomer kid who's like, bigger, stronger, faster. Maybe he's, got a little bit more exposure to basketball at an earlier age than the rest of the kids. And like, the coach who's, I want to win the league title, I want to win the trophy, whatever, is like, quickly figures out that just get the ball to that kid and you guys get out of the way. That to me is about winning, not development. And when those 2 dials are it's very, when the incentive is to win, you want to turn that dial up and be damned the other dial, right? Like, who cares? I want to get it to the great young early bloomer kid and just clear out and let him go. And I don't have children, but if I showed up and that was the way the league that I paid for my son or daughter to play in was being played, I would remove them. Even if my son or daughter was the kid getting, the clear out called for them, I would remove them, because this is not what I want out of my experience for my child.
Yeah.
I just would.
Yeah, I agree.
And you don't have to participate. Like, you really don't, parents, if you're listening. Like, you can raise a good basketball player without necessarily entering into this basketball industrial complex at 8 years old, right? You don't have to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
So my advice would be just like, keep development at the top of mind. Even if it means you lose the game,
Mm-hmm.
development to me would be the priority at that level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So those are some of my thoughts. And you got any more you want to share?
I don't know. I was kind of thinking through a couple of them, but they would probably more of like the secondary level, um, rather
I'm
than like
talking youth, like
youth. Yeah,
children.
I
Like,
wouldn't. I wouldn't do. I thought about like implications for shot clock and 3-point line, but I think that those would have again, like, what are we trying to accomplish long term?
I
They
think a
may
standardized court would be nice.
standardized court would be nice. I just wonder if at that point, because kids couldn't shoot from that far away, if you end up then with a lot of a lack of space that's being played. But
Yeah.
maybe not.
Yeah.
I do think that they're depending on how young we're talking, 3-point line, and then also some
Hmm.
sort of shot clock, just to standardize things. I think it's done overseas and it seems to have good results. But yeah, I depending on how young we're talking, those two things may not be very helpful.
So I asked a question to the coaches in my mentoring program this morning before our show, just to sort of like get a bunch of high school and college coaches I work with from all over the country, even abroad. Um, that I just said, "What's your biggest gripe about youth basketball?" You care if I read some responses?
Yeah, go right ahead.
One says too many games.
Mm.
So maybe the practice to game ratio is out of whack. Like, um, another says full court pressing. I see that. I used to see that a lot when I would go watch youth little dribblers or something in the communities I coached in, and I would see like, yeah, no one's really getting anything out of this. Like, it's just press. I just yeah, like maybe there's some rules and strategies that should be held back. And this coach, who offered his answer, thinks full court press might be one of them. And another one says winning is the only concern. I think that speaks to what I was talking about. Are we trying to win? Or are we trying to develop? Which dial am I turning up if I'm the youth coach, right?
Mhm.
Um, Another guy says too much 5-on-5. So like that goes to your point of maybe we need to play 3-on-3 or smaller sides to sort of get more involvement, more, smaller sides, more touches, smaller court, all of those things like you talked about soccer doing first, that maybe we could transfer that to basketball. Another one, and I spoke to this, was too much bully ball strategies revolve around the early blooming players. Like, hey, get it to the really, oh, I got this great kid on my youth team, and let's just get it to him, and you other guys get out of the way. And yeah, so that's some of the feedback that I got from a group of coaches by posing the question, "What's your biggest gripe about youth basketball?"
Yeah, and those are great. I've coached with a camp league actually that did no pressing and significant improvement in how the game was played itself, because of the amount of talent that you may or may not have on the floor. And if I think the idea of development, if that is paramount, if that is the most important thing, and this is hard to buy into, but if the development is there, the winning will come. And I know it may not come as fast as you might want. It may be just easier to throw it to that one guy. But
Yeah,
again, like, what are we actually trying to accomplish here? And if development is paramount, then we do need more time to practice. And the argument against that is kids only get better by playing in games. And what they're saying is they only get better in game situations by playing games. And that's why we talk almost too much about
yeah,
playing in practices and playing small sided games and not
hmm,
doing this on air stuff. I have personally seen our improvement in the win column by us playing more games in practice, but it's not just scrimmaging.
yeah,
And I think that's why both of us just keep harping on educating coaches as to what that can actually look like in your practice so that you do win more games, but you also are developing players who know how to play the game.
yeah. One piece, I'm often asked, what would my biggest piece of advice for a youth coach would be? And again, full disclosure, I went straight to coaching high school basketball. I didn't coach youth. I really don't like it. I don't really, it's not something that I would say I'm an expert on, or by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not. But if I were to be asked, like, what would your biggest advice be for a youth coach? I would say just don't be the reason that the kid leaves the sport. Like, don't be a jerk, yelling, screaming, and like make boring, and this isn't fun. This isn't. And then the kid, the next, mom or dad comes the next year and says, "Hey, you want to play basketball again this year?" Nah, I didn't like it. Like if it's not for everybody, I get that, but like don't let the yourself coach be the reason that the kid leaves the sport. If they don't want to play, they find another love, another passion, that's fine. But like if they leave the sport because like the adult, the dad or whomever that was assigned to coach their first team they were ever on or something like that, or their second or third team they were on, and they're like, this was a horrible experience. I think that's just don't be the reason they leave the sport, like that'd be my biggest piece of advice.
Yeah. Great thoughts. Great thoughts.
So I have one question for you before we go.
Sure.
And this was impromptu, and I wanted to throw it to you. Would be I know you have a young son, and he's probably about the age where he's going to be beginning his journey into competitive basketball. Is that correct?
Right.
He may be a year or two away, but he's probably getting there, right?
Yep.
So what do you see just as a parent? Maybe try to take your coaching mind out for a second and just as a parent, what do you see that you just wish you didn't see or don't like about the options that are there for your son, what it looks like, what the games are like, what do you see that you wish were different?
Some of the things we talked about, I think just the amount of games versus the development side of things. I've had the advantage of either running the camps for or being a part of the camps that he's been a part of. And the focus of what those are, like the skill development, whereas I still think at that young of an age, like he's 5, so, like, teaching them how to dribble, but
Mm-hmm.
then playing a game that we've played for years that everybody's knows of, but, like, a game like Dribble Knockout, where
Mm-hmm.
there is always that element of fun, and there is a development, and there is, like, understanding space and how to play and whatever, like, rather than focusing an overemphasis on one of those things,
Yeah.
and that's where it seems to be like there's an overemphasis on skills, or there is an overemphasis on just playing the game, or there is an overemphasis on fun even. And I'm like, that doesn't have anything to do with
Mm-hmm.
basketball. And like, how can we combine all three of those elements so that they leave wanting to play? Like, it just thrills my soul when he's already at the age where I'm leaving for work in the morning and he's
Mm-hmm.
out at 7:30, 8 o'clock, whatever, shooting outside. Like, he wants to go. And when I get home, the first thing, hey, dad, can we go outside and play basketball?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what you're really trying to get at with these kids, is like they're wanting to do these things because it is fun, but also they're learning the development through the skills themselves. And then also
Yeah.
I think it always seems to be an overemphasis on something. Like, there's an overemphasis on winning, or there's an overemphasis on fun, or there's an overemphasis on just doing skills. And there's
Mm-hmm.
problems with each of those. With skills, with overemphasis on skills, it's boring. An overemphasis on fun, they never learn how to do anything. An overemphasis on winning, there's not a development because
Yeah.
we're going to do whatever we need to do to manufacture the win.
Yeah.
So like just being in balance with all those things.
Yeah. Well said. So is there anything you as a parent of a youngster that's going to, probably move through the basketball industrial complex, like that you're going to say, I'm not, everyone else does this, but I'm not going to do this with my kid?
I have attempted to allow him to play what he wants to play when he wants to play it. And I think that that helps with the overall skill and motor development and the interest as well. That then does down the road prevent potential burnout, prevent potential injuries. Like, as a teacher of those things, like, I'm aware of all of those studies.
Mm-hmm.
And so all
Mm-hmm.
of those are kind of in the back of my mind. And I just, again, don't want to have an overemphasis on something that then has negative results to it.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well said. Great answer. Thank you.
Sure. That's
You
good.
you can bring both perspectives
Sure.
as a parent and a coach and and an observer of the sport,
Yeah.
I would just say that like I could see that being a challenge
Yeah.
to see maybe some of the products that are available to your son as he enters into sports and see all the things that like are a little incongruent with what as a coach and a
Right.
student of sports and things like that an educator that man, I just wish this were different,
Yeah.
like yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. For sure. Yeah, these are good.
Okay.
Um, yeah, that's good.
That's all I
Uh,
got.
yeah, no, it's fantastic, fantastic. We'll try to at some point maybe turn parts of these into like a blog post that you can read more about. We do want to make you aware of coming up this coming month, Tuesday,
Mhm.
September 27th. We have a 5-out clinic. We talked about like plays. These are not necessarily plays. This is more of like teaching players how to play and kind of some early offense options out of it. I have seen just more and more coaches attempting to develop an offense philosophy. They are merging transition offense and half court offense into one and just wanting to teach their players how to play seamlessly. When we get the ball, we're on offense.
I'd like
And
to think I have a little something to do with
you
that.
do have something to do with that. I have seen, I've had coaches. I had one just ask me yesterday, like about how to go about doing that. This would be something that would be great for you. We're going to talk about 5-out early offense. Randy's going to have just some great stuff. We'll have clips, we'll have diagrams, we'll have breakdowns, we'll have teaching points. There'll be a little bit of everything, and then it always ends with a Q&A. We had a great group last time. We talked about pressure, man-to-man
Mhm.
defense,
Yeah.
and I have a feeling we'll have even more that are interested. But that will be Tuesday, September 27th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time,
Yep.
7:30 p.m. Central Time. We have links available down in the descriptions, and then also we've been posting them on social media, and we'll continue to do that over the course of the month. So be sure to sign up for that if you're interested in attending that. Thanks to all of you who joined us this week. If you missed any part of this live show, you can go back and watch or listen to any part. You can watch the full version at Radius Athletics YouTube page. Just search Hoops Forum there on YouTube, or you can go to any podcast platform if you want to listen to it and search Hoops Forum, and you'll find the audio version of the show there. For Randy Sherman, I'm Tony Miller. We'll talk to you again next time on Hoops Forum.